Welcome to another episode of the Ignite Your Mind podcast, a safe place for real talk on discovering powerful stories, talking about mental health, real business journeys, and hearing inspiring stories. My goal in this podcast is to uplevel your creative thinking, to help you see the infinite potential you have, and to show you that anything is possible. And this couldn't reign more true in this podcast. My name's Sanjay Patel, and I'm a transformational life coach. And this week, I have a special guest and long-term friend that is Sean Gay. Sean has been through a whirlwind of a journey which concludes his alcohol and cocaine addiction, which also led to gambling and becoming heavily in debt. Sean talks us through his journey in detail of how he finally made the decision to enter rehab and completely 180 his life around, and now living out his true purpose. He also mentions why this has led him to start building his own business built on the 4 value pillars, as he calls it, to help those who have been through similar experiences. This is the first time Sean has opened up about his story, and for that, I'm forever grateful. I really hope you enjoy. Okay, so welcome to another episode of the Ignite Your Mind podcast. Myself, Sanjay Patel, and I've got a guest today, a special guest, a good friend of mine. If I'm being honest, I'm a little bit nervous about how this conversation is going to go. It's a different conversation that I've had in my previous podcast. I know it's been quite a lot of business-related stuff, inspiring journeys. This is a very inspiring journey and a very deep, and it's going to resonate with a lot of people. So let's just get straight into it and introduce the man himself, Mr. Sean Gay. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, mate. How's things?
Yeah, all good, mate. How's the old lockdown treating you?
I'm actually really enjoying it, to be fair. It's given me the time to concentrate on things that I needed to, because I lost my last contract in the travel industry. Yeah. So actually the timing of me going into my new business has actually worked out quite well. So I literally haven't had a day where I've been moping around. I've been doing a bit of sunbathing, but that's just for health benefits, for a bit of vitamin D. So
of course,
I've really enjoyed it. It's just coming out the other end now. I'm like, maybe I'm going to be scared about going back out in the real world. But
do you know what? I think everyone's going to feel like that in their own little way, like, because you're so used to doing these day-to-day things, and I fully believe everything happens for a reason. Like you just said, like you've been actually quite enjoying it. Like you've adapted quite quickly. I know there's a lot of people that haven't, but mate, fair play. It's it is a bit of a weird one coming out of it. You're like, oh, what am I like? What do I do? How do I be, like, just because it's so different to what we're doing at the moment. So let's see what happens. It's going to be exciting, though. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, so for any of you listening right now, just to give you a bit of a background story, Sean and I have been friends for what? I don't know.
15 years. I think.
Is it? No.
Yeah, we don't look a day older either.
No, I mean, I've got younger.
Yeah, you have. All that running.
The hair's a bit longer, but we're all good. Is it 15 years?
Yeah, well, if we think it was 18 when you came up to Nottingham.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that sort of gives away our ages as well now.
Wow, mate, whoa, what a mad journey then we've both been on, really. You more so. So I wanted to get Sean on because he's been through a lot. Let's put it that way, a lot. And we're going to dig deep into his past and obviously what's happened, how he's overcome it. Yeah, you can tell my voice. I was a little bit nervous. I don't know why, to be fair, because it's only you. I was trying to give you a hug, mate, but I can't because you're on Zoom. Anyway, Sean, take us back to the uni days when we first met. What were you doing? What was your normal routine? What was going on for you?
Normal routine was lived the university life. Met some amazing people up there, which is how we ended up becoming friends. I never really cared at uni. Like I went to university and just never really had any drive or motivation to do anything. It was sort of a process that you get involved with. Everyone that I was around sort of had their aspirations and goals for work and stuff. But I sort of got through uni, got a 2-1, got drunk an awful lot. I mean, an awful lot. Put about 4.5 stone on in weight.
Wow.
So I think it was at uni that my bad habits started probably escalating a bit, because to put 4.5 stone on when I've always suffered a bit with my own self-confidence in terms of my perception of me was always the biggest worry. And that obviously coming out of university, I'd lost weight to go into university, but then I've always suffered with confidence issues. So it was a case of masking that with drinking too much, that anxiety of meeting people in new situations, etc. Probably most of my first year, I can't really remember. To be fair.
What? Because you were just so drunk all the time.
Yeah, it was more the thing of it. It was sort of normalised to sort of go out and get blind drunk.
That's that's uni life, isn't it? That was uni life. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I come up to see you. And I remember visiting loads of people at university in times like that, where we just go up because it's a night out and it's cheap, and you can just go and get pissed. But the question is, like, the underlying, what you just said a minute ago, you masked it because you had confidence issues from before that. But what now, when you look back, obviously now you look back, you think, oh, right, okay, well, shit. It kind of makes sense. Like, I was just doing it for the sake of doing it. And you were probably, I was definitely conforming to society back then. I would just do what everyone else is doing. Didn't really have my own mind or my own way I would work. I mean, what was that like for you? Like, you said you put on loads of weight. Like, what was going on?
It's a comfort thing. I think in certain situations, people turn to different things to make themselves feel better. And I'd always eaten more than enough from a young age, coming from half Italian family. Just always eat this and eat that. So that because I can look back at everything now in hindsight, I know why I used to eat too much, drink too much, do too many drugs, which we'll come on to. Because it was just masking up anxiety, which I never really tackled just through being myself.
It's interesting because I remember those days where, you know, we were just going out drinking a lot. We were just doing stupid things just because we were young and like we enjoyed it. And it's the problem because one thing leads to another. And like when you were doing that, like what was going through your head? Like, because I knew you, right, as always the loud one. You were always the loud one. You were always the one that wanted to do stuff. You were always the one that wanted to take the piss out of each other. Like, you were always the one that was the life of the party, right?
Yeah, and I think that sort of with age, you come to your own realization that everyone's growing up around you, and then it's just you, because everyone else is doing their own things, and then you sort of drift into other groups of people that are like you, and then it's just the self-fulfilling prophecy of still going nowhere with your life. And I think that was it really. Like I used to have a good time, etc. But I needed the alcohol to sort of give me a kickstart because I didn't have that natural confidence. I'd always say that I think there's no difference in terms of how I can be, but there's no hiding the fact that alcohol does give you that inertia that you can do and say things that you wouldn't do
normally.
Yeah.
Just want to go back to something you said, that, you know, you started attracting other people that were doing what you were doing at that time. And I'm a big believer right now that your vibe attracts your tribe, right? You know, you put that stuff out there, you put that energy out there, you do things that, for example, drinking, you're going to attract other drinkers and other people that are doing that stuff. So what was the effect after you left uni? Like, what happened? Where did you go? What were you doing?
So went to try and do golf, turned professional, but then after 8 months realised that I needed the money. So went into a finance job, worked for RBS, just an entry level job. So in theory, I didn't really have to go to university for 3 years to go into that. But then sort of started doing drugs when I was working at the pub, because in South London it is just goes part and parcel with the pint, it seems.
How old were you when you started?
So I was 22 when I started. And then obviously with my drinking the way that it was, I wasn't an everyday drinker because I literally could never drink after a hangover. So I would drink once, probably on a Friday to Saturday morning, and then I'll be dead for the rest of the weekend. But then as time went on, the drugs sort of took over the drinking side of things, because I felt like I had a sense of control with the drugs because I could remember everything. So
it would level you up, right?
Oh, 100%. And it was still that putting something in you to change the way that you feel is what addiction is to a certain extent, and it's the inability to be able to stop that cycle. So that cycle started from 22.
But just to slow you down a little bit, when you went out drinking, you said you didn't drink every day, but when you did go out and drink, how long would you drink for? How much would you drink?
There was no off button, so it was a case of
nothing.
It just keep going until that automatic home beacon went, and then you suddenly find yourself on your sofa or in your bed if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Like
So
the
give me some
drinking side.
context. Give me some context. So let's just say, for example, what would you go out drinking on a Thursday or a Friday?
Yeah, so if I went out on a Thursday, then ultimately I'd have the hangover at work, and
On a
I
Friday,
just
yeah.
I didn't deal very well with hangovers. So it was just a case of getting to work and sort of die. But you could do that when you were younger. Like
Yeah.
I could manage to go into work hungover, and it wouldn't really make any difference.
Yeah.
But then with age, the hangovers just become worse. And it's the lack of sleep more than anything. So not ever sleeping for a couple of days during the working week and going into work with no sleep was the thing that started the sort of mental health problems further down the line in terms of just being anxious, stressed, and bordering paranoid schizophrenic, I think, just because I never had any sleep. So yeah, for me, the relationship was, I think, drinking. It was that saying that you drink on a Friday to forget about the week that you've just had.
Yeah.
But then that creates its own cycle. So I was stuck in that from 22 onwards, up until the age of 31, pretty much. But things got worse in 2015 because I've been doing drugs for a while, up until my 28, and I found myself with a house. I was about to buy my second house. I had a beautiful girlfriend. Sort of on paper, I had everything as society would expect you. I was smashing it.
Yeah.
But I just felt like I'd been put in all these processes and I just wasn't happy. Now, for a bloke, like you said, when you met me, I was very loud, brash and bantery, etc. So I almost created my own block where I couldn't feel like I could go to anyone and sort of say, look, this is like, I'm really not happy in the situation. I don't really know what to do. So rather than say anything, I just sort of masked it up with drugs and booze and just carried on doing it and doing it. Admitted to the girlfriend at the time that I was a coke addict, and she left me. My mum happened to fall ill, not related to it, with a life-threatening illness, which she's made a full recovery from. I just started a new job, which I left because I had to go and look after my mum. Also sort my own shit out as well.
Let's give some context on the drug part. It was cocaine, right?
Yeah.
Did you do any other drugs, or was it just cocaine?
Mainly coke. So I would have gone to festivals and done pills and MDMA, speed, so that sort of thing.
So how much coke would you normally buy in if you were going out and doing whatever before you knew you were addicted?
So it started off once a month, do one.
Okay.
And then it'd be
one gram, or I don't know.
Yeah, just one when you start off, because it's tolerance levels as well.
Yeah. How much would that usually cost?
50 to £100. It depends from person.
So you get one bag in a month, costs you about 50 to £100. Yeah. Carry on.
And then that sort of from 22 up to 28 just escalated to getting 5 grams every day. So for me, yeah, it's a miracle that I'm still alive because of the amount I was doing. I went to hospital in 2016 after I had quite a bad year, massively depressed. Everything had gone, house was up for sale, etc. But I went to the opticians because my eyes were hemorrhaging at the back. So I just went for a routine checkup for my eyes, and she said, you need to go to A&E now. And I was like, okay. So went to A&E.
Did she say why?
Then, because my eyes were hemorrhaging.
Eyes were
hemorrhaging. See it was at the back. It wasn't too bad, and that was they ruled out everything apart from lifestyles, because I was open with them. I told them what I was doing in my daily life, and the blood pressure was like, the systolic was about 200, the diastolic was about 160, I think.
So what is it? Is this from the coke you did?
Yeah, so it's just a terrible lifestyle, because they did all the tests to rule it out, and it was just that amount of use for that amount of time, and all the stress I'd gone through, because I had to leave the country back in 2016 as well, because I've had some threats from people that I owed money to. I needed to get out of the country to try and sort my life out and to just let things die down a bit. So for me, it was just an incredibly hectic time with everything going on. And the hospital didn't even stop me. So the doctor put me on some blood pressure tablets, and there just wasn't the support. I just still felt in myself that I couldn't really talk to anyone about it, because I'd admitted that I was struggling. I went to NHS counselling, but she said to me, you've got two choices, right? So you can either stop doing cocaine, right? This is a drugs counsellor.
That's not gonna.
You can either you can either stop, or you can reduce your intake. At the time, I was just like, I didn't think anything of it. But now looking back and going through what I've gone through, I'm like, that is probably some of the worst advice you could ever give to someone.
That's shocking.
I know, it's bizarre. And that's why I don't really have a trust for NHS counsellors.
But look, not being funny, but like, no wonder you didn't want to speak to anyone, because if you're getting advice like that, it's not really helpful, and nor is it going to benefit you, and nor is it even going to get you off of it. It's probably going to send you the opposite way. I just want to slow down a little bit, because I really want to get some context around the amount of money when you got fully addicted. So, I mean, this is how it started. So correct me if I'm wrong. So what I'm hearing from you is that you started in uni life, you started going out drinking, put on a load of weight. That was the uni life. That was conforming to society. That was what we did back then. And then as soon as you left uni, you went and got a boring entry-level job in a bank, and it didn't even really work out that you wanted to do that. It was just doing it for the sake of doing it. But then you worked in a pub as well, and that's where your cocaine addiction really started. But you weren't addicted to it then. You were just doing it as a form of masking yourself and just trying to keep going, again, conforming to society, because you wanted to be that character, right? And then fast forward like 6 years to 28 years old, you ramped up your cocaine intake every week, every month. Plus you're spending, I don't know what, 50 to 100 pound a day, would you say, on it?
Yeah, it was probably about 200 pounds a day.
200 pounds a day you were spending on it?
Yeah.
Every day?
No, it goes in phases. Okay. I didn't sustain it for every day, but you could have a week of doing that, and then probably 2 or 3 days off, because my body would just shut down, and I wouldn't be able to physically do anything anyway. And I was working from home for the majority of it.
Right. Okay. So you had no control. No one was there to control it. You were free to do what you wanted to do, basically.
Yeah, and I think part of my own personality up until that point was sort of trying to master self-confidence issues, but then you've got the other side, which is your own ego, and that type of lifestyle feeds an ego which won't admit any weaknesses. So I was sort of stuck between a load of various places, but never really had any sort of advice or help through corporate work or anything like that I thought, oh, maybe I might have an issue here, because it was sort of normalized between the group of friends I was with, because that's what we would do. But then mine, I sort of took it behind closed doors. So even the girlfriend at the time, she didn't have a clue for about a year. And I think from being to various meetings and stuff, I don't actually think that's that uncommon. Because people are so ashamed, and there's such a stigma around it, that people just don't feel like they can talk openly about having a problem with it. It's showing that sign of weakness when you're apparently trying to look like top lad. It just doesn't go hand in hand.
So like when you got to 28, did you know, like, when did you actually know you were addicted to cocaine and alcohol?
I think mentally, I just reached a point where the sleep deprivation was killing me. I wasn't necessarily addicted to alcohol, but if I wasn't addicted to drugs, I probably would have been addicted to alcohol. But then started gambling because I fell into depression. So the girlfriend quite rightfully left me. Like, if you lie to someone about something like that, then she had to make her own decisions. And in hindsight, I might have been quite resentful at the time. But actually looking back at it now, fair play. Like, it's a very difficult situation to be in a house with someone who doesn't see really their own problems or the hurt or stuff that they're causing other people. Yeah, and then gambling started pretty quick. So I was debt free in May 2015.
Yeah.
I was about to buy a second home, had a nice car, money in the bank, and then just through depression, like I hit a massive depression point because my mum was in hospital as well, and it just seemed like I lived a sheltered life up until then, and everything hit me at once, and I just started gambling, really, really gambling, and I lost a lot of money in a very short
So what
space of
gambling?
time.
What type of gambling would you go to?
So because I was up for most of the night, just sort of
On the
staring at the
drugs.
wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd just be online, whether it was poker or slot machines. The slot machines are the dangerous ones because you could lose £200 a spin. So I got 2 loans out.
How much?
And then ultimately, well, I think in total, because I had to go through debt relief, I was getting debt. I had 9 different debt collectors chasing me every day for a whole year, on top of everything else that was going on.
What, on top of your depression, on top of doing the cocaine, like top of staying up,
trying to sell the house, trying to just left my job, being ill, and it was about, I think it was 50 grand I was in debt, which in 2 months people might think, oh, that was really quick, but it's amazing that actually it's not a complete spiral. That spiral was already happening probably about 2 or 3 years before it, and I just decided to hit every single fuck it button I had, and I just imploded at a royal pace. But yeah, and to be honest, there were some instances as well in 2016 where I think a really deep depression, because I was doing things that even looking at now, I'm just grateful to be alive, like drink driving without a care in the world, and potentially it's a subconscious way of thinking, you know what, I literally don't care what happens. And that's the case of driving back from someone's wedding. I won't mention him because we both know him. And I can't remember the drive. It was like an hour and a half drive. I could have killed anyone. I could have been in prison. There's so many consequences of things that you don't realize when you're in such a deep depression, because the only thing on your mind is that you don't care. You literally don't care. And that was the same thought process I was having every single time I woke up.
For how long?
So that was in 2016, probably for 6 or 7 months. I think they put me on antidepressants, but they just monged me out a bit.
I've got a big stigma around this because, or thoughts about this, because I've spoken to a lot of people who do take antidepressant tablets. Some people it does work for. Some people it suppresses whatever they're feeling and it makes them feel a little bit normal. Some people it goes the opposite way, and it makes them feel a whole lot worse and a whole lot more depressed. And it's almost like, well, where did the diagnosis from the doctor come from? Did it come from the correct place? Did they understand what the actual issue was? Did they go deep into the problem? And this is one of the things why I set out to do what I wanted to do. I had a friend who unfortunately passed away about 6-7 years ago now, and that was one of the cases that they actually gave her antidepressants. And one of the reasons I do what I do today, my mission or my mantra is that I'm out to save lives via conversation, no drugs, because I do believe that you can do that. Not with everyone. Everyone's a different case, obviously, but for you, like, what happened to them when you got given them? How long did you take them for? What effects did they give you?
So with antidepressants, there are some that you can't take if you're still doing drugs. So cocaine flashed up on the GP's warning sign: do not give this antidepressant if they're on drugs. It seems like a bit of a strange thing anyway, because you shouldn't be drinking or doing drugs if you're depressed anyway. It's a self-fulfilling cycle. Like Tyson Fury, he's been quite open about that same cycle of, if you're depressed, you take drugs to make yourself feel better, and then that just keeps going round and round and round, and you end up nowhere. But I think in terms, they didn't really do anything. I think they do have a warning sign that you might experience suicidal thoughts and to contact the GP if they come up, but I can't remember at the time that they really did anything other than just mong me out a bit. So I sort of sold the house after a year. My mum had made a good recovery. So in that time, the good thing was that I spent a lot more time with my mum, and that was healthy for both of us, because she was paralyzed from the waist down through a weird virus. So we had to make her learn to walk again, which at the age of 60, 65 isn't easy.
Yeah, of
So
course.
we luckily
Imagine.
got through that, and then decided, once I got the money from the house, I'd settled my debts with all the debtors.
Yeah.
Because that was just one of the biggest headaches and stresses. Anyone who goes through debt relief, when you're getting 9 letters pretty much every other day, threatening this and threatening that, with no real support or anything, it's just, okay, fair enough, don't get in debt and don't waste their money, but it's just a pain in the arse.
But when you're in that mindset where you are gambling, you don't think about the debt. You don't think about, you're just thinking, can I win more? Can I get this money back? Right? Is that what you felt? And like, what was going when you were gambling, when you were actually in the zone at 3:00 in the morning, coats like off your nut? Like, what were you thinking?
I wouldn't call it a zone. There's no thought process. It's literally just doing something to take away the feelings and having to sit there with yourself and actually think, my life's fucked. It's just instant gratification. So you do anything to mask how you're feeling at that time, whether that's buying, shopping, whether that's gambling, whether that's eating, whether that's having sex or doing drugs or whatever. That was the sort of place I was in, and I had the money at the time to do it. So it was an easy win for me, just to sort of not have to deal with everything that had come down at a rate of knots.
Well, this is a big thing, right? Because gambling is a big problem for a lot of people, gambling addiction. And when I was studying like the Vegas casinos and how they operate and how they curate their casinos to keep you fully engaged and give you those constant dopamine releases, like constant. So you constantly feel the buzz and you crave, like normal human intuition. Same with social media, like you constantly crave that dopamine release. And it's something which can get really addictive really quickly without you even knowing it. And especially if you're coming from a place where you're not even doing it just for fun, you're doing it because I need to mask other shit that's going on.
Yeah. And I think that social media one's massive, because from my process of going to rehab, etc., I've learned about cross addictions. So I'm very aware that I spend too much time on Instagram. To the point, and also dating apps. Last year, I spent too much time dating on dating apps, and it's through the way that they're manufactured. Like you said, they're there to keep people on them as long as possible, because then they can increase their advertising revenue, etc. And they get people that are behavioural analysis people to build these apps, because they know through nudge theory and everything like that they can pretty much keep you there for as long as possible. It's like Facebook notifications about this, that, and everything. I'm like, I don't need to go on to know that someone's playing some fruit gem game or something. Like, leave me alone, please.
No, exactly. Okay, I mean, look, let's circle back a little bit. Like, when was the moment you knew that this can't go on anymore?
So I attempted to turn pro in Australia. So after 2017, I think we're in now. Yeah.
Talk about Australia as well, like, because I know you mentioned this to me before. Like, what happened over there?
So I moved over to Australia with a mate at the time, just because he was already working there. So he moved from London to do advertising job, and the idea for me was to get away from all my problems and just enjoy some time traveling the world and doing things nicely. But now I look back, I had a lot of money from the house sale still, but I was also, like, the mental health, I haven't at this point done anything to get professional support from anyone. I've just tried to self-manage my own addiction.
So how old were you when you went to Australia?
So I was 29, 30, I think.
So let's take when you left university at 22, 29, 30. So you're looking 6, 7, 8 years of going through this whole journey of like being addicted, and you still didn't really do anything to help yourself.
No, so going to Australia was my attempt at trying to get clean, but it follows you. I mean, it manifests itself in other things. I was drinking too much, gambling, like Sydney's terrible. I mean, the only place that's open 24 hours to get a drink is the casino. Really nice casino, but they don't help themselves. And then they've also got gambling shops in all their sort of pubs as well.
I went to Melbourne, last year. I saw that. I know exactly what you mean. They're everywhere, aren't they? Like horse racing is massive. You can constantly gamble,
Yeah, so in terms of that, I had an amazing experience because Australia is beautiful. Like Sydney, it's just a very fit and healthy place to be around.
Yeah.
But I think I was just broken, very lonely, and I was just trying to move somewhere else to see if it was any different. And then I moved to Cape Town. So I came back for Christmas for a brief time, moved to Cape Town, joined a golf club, got a nice apartment overlooking Table Mountain. South Africa for me is like the place where I sort of started to realise, because Cape Town, it's cheap, the drugs out there, and it's always available.
So what made you realise? What made you sort of realise then?
Just because I was doing it all the time, that huge sense of loneliness had travelled with me. So I hadn't even though I had an amazing time, like the golf courses out there, etc., are amazing, and the experiences I'm grateful for have. But that's that feeling, that deep-rooted feeling in me, knowing that I don't feel any different to how I did probably 2 years ago in the height of the addiction.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do all these things to mask how my life had just royally collapsed at a very quick pace. But to be honest, I came back from Cape Town, sort of had a bit of money left, not much, and then played golf for another 6 months and did the same, just did drugs, managed to get a job.
So when you were in Cape Town, you sort of realised that, okay, something needs to change, but yet even then you still didn't implement anything to help yourself.
No, because I thought when I go home, this is the thing, I thought when I go home it will change again. Okay. So it's that trying to do things new in your mind. You think, oh, that'll be me. This is my new start. It's like coming to a Monday. On a Sunday, everyone goes, oh, never drinking again. I'm going to have a much better week this week. And then, it just doesn't happen. So that was
Thursday, Friday again. You're ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the stress and strains of going into a new job. I was working for a big insurance company, and I got the job. It was in the old job that I didn't particularly like. Like, I just ended up working in this investment company, and it just wasn't interesting enough.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I put myself back in that environment.
But when you were, sorry, I just want to stop you for a second. I'll ask you a question. When you were working, for example, at that investment firm, did you ever wake up in the morning and do cocaine and go to work, or do it at work?
No, never. So in my mind, I justified my existence by never doing it at work. But I'd have been doing it until probably like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, so you were fueled with it from the night before, and then still go to work in the morning?
I wouldn't necessarily say fueled. Actually, to be fair, I got into a routine where I would only drink water. So this is how my mind used to trick me into thinking I was okay.
Yeah, go on.
So I would drink water. I wouldn't drink any booze. And then I'd stop at 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock was always my cutoff.
Right.
But I never, ever managed to sleep. I was staring at the wall, and then the alarm would go off. And then I just felt dead. Like there was no fuel. I wasn't going in high-fiving everyone and chucking dwarves around the office.
Yeah.
It was just dead. And all I had to do was get through the day, really.
So you literally didn't have any sleep?
No, none. And that's ultimately what ended up. So if we go forward a bit, so I joined the company in August 2017, and then I did my 4 months probation. And it wasn't timed like this, but I started getting quite stressed at work, and then my old habits came in of drinking more, doing drugs, and then it just I had a heavy Christmas period, New Year's, and woke up on the 2nd of January, and mentally I just reached that point. It's that when you speak to people that are in recovery, it's that cycle of having done this same thing over and over again for years, and they just wake up one morning and they go, you know what, mentally I've had such little sleep that I just can't keep doing this. And I just had a big strong word with myself, there was thoughts going through my head about other options, like potentially suicide, and that was the thing that really scared me.
So tell me more about those thoughts then. Like when you were in those thoughts, what was happening for you? What were you telling yourself?
It was just a case of weighing up sort of things like mum and dad have been amazing my whole life. So
Yeah.
not just to think about myself like I had done for the majority of time, but just to give, like, it's my chance to myself to just say, look, wipe the slate clean and just give this your best shot. Like, I knew that I was an addict. So I said to myself in bed, if you put half the amount of effort in you do to get drugs, and some of the things I used to do to pick up drugs, I travel for hours.
Really?
So if I could put that same level of effort in, then I could still live a brilliant life with everything in it. It wasn't going to be easy, but I couldn't carry on living in that same cycle. And then luckily had a good insurance policy that got me into the Priory in Roehampton, which costs about 22 grand. So from my point of view, I'm
rehab?
so they got like a psychiatric unit there, but they've got an addiction program as part of it. Now, my insurance policy at work was good enough that I could actually get the 28-day residential stay there, and ultimately that is the 28 days where I've learned so much about my life, met so many people with similar backgrounds, not similar backgrounds, but everyone's there for the same reason. It doesn't matter if you're a heroin addict, an alcoholic, or anything like that. You're all there for the same reason. You need professional help.
Yeah, because do you know what? There's a massive thing about this. Like a lot of people I speak to with mental health illnesses, like depression, like severe depression, severe anxiety, stuff like that. They're actually scared to even go into a place of rehab. They think it's going to be like white suit jackets, like you're stranded and you're taped up and you can't really do anything and you're so restricted. Was it scary?
No, to be honest, I had the biggest sense of relief when I walked into that group meeting on my first day. I just felt like I was in the right place.
Really? Okay.
It was scary because the people in there, I'm not going to mention names or anything, but one of the guys was suffering from cirrhosis, and he honestly looked dead. He was a dead man walking. Wow. And I just thought to myself, I didn't even think to myself, I'm not as bad as these people, because I was. Internally, I needed fixing. And I just felt relieved that I was giving myself the chance to go into rehab. And the other thing as well, the thing that actually fueled me going to rehab, because I was actually potentially looking at being homeless. I've never admitted this even to my parents, but because my parents would never have let me go. But I just moved into a flat with a mate. And this was the end of all the money that I got from my flat cell.
Yeah.
And for me to see all that money go, and I mean there was a lot of money, to zero, was the catalyst for me.
Would
the
you,
real
would you
catalyst.
mind sharing how much?
It's a lot.
Okay. Are we talking like six figures?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. All right.
Yeah. So it was a lot. And to be fair, like I got gifted some of the money from my nan, and there was a lot of weight and pressure on me never to admit anything. But now I can admit it to a certain extent. Like it was enough money that most people could buy a house in certain parts of the country.
Okay.
But that last penny getting spent, I was just, in a way, I was glad that I spent it, because that was me then going, well, now you're really fucked. You need to go and get help. And I was just lucky that I worked in employee benefits at the time, so I knew how insurance schemes worked and that there was support there if I needed it. Yeah. So that's how I ended up.
I mean, mate, like this sounds like you kind of, to the outside world looking in, and they see Sean living a normal, happy life, just going about his business, because they don't see, this is the thing about mental health, is it's an invisible illness. You can't see it. You mask so much over those years. So for me, even looking back all those years ago, I just thought you were one of the lads. Like a lot of other our friends just thought, you were all right. You love to party and stuff like that. But we never really knew the actual extent of it. And this is the thing, right? You being able to seek help, go to rehab, completely change your life around, is that defining moment, And it sounds like when you've run out of money, that was when the penny dropped. And I think when you had the money, it sounds like you thought you were safe in your head because you thought, okay, I've still got money. I can still keep spending, and maybe this can just drag out for a little bit longer.
Yeah, 100%. I think the money was the one thing that was holding me back, probably to get help a bit sooner. But everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm still alive, but I'm grateful every day for the fact I am. So that now, everything I've been through is my motivation for doing the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And doing them in the right way, with no chaos and minimal drama in my life. Like, it's so much a happier place in my head.
Mate, I mean, look, if that's a story to tell, then tell you what, that's quite a powerful thing. And I really hope that anyone that's listening to this that thinks that going out and doing cocaine on a monthly basis, that thinks it's fun, you know, that they're conforming to society just because they're power to doing it, then maybe just have a conversation with yourself, have a word with yourself. I mean, what would you tell people, like, you know, people that are in the uni days now? What would you tell them? Because it's rife in universities at the moment. I know that for a fact. So I've seen documentaries. It's so easy access at the moment, especially for drugs and alcohol. So what would you tell your older self?
I just would have stayed sober. I think one of the most powerful things you can do as a human being is go through life not using other substances, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or anything similar, to mask how you actually feel. And how you react is, it's just powerful, because you're constantly learning about yourself and how you react and how you counteract certain situations, just without anything else to mask it. But obviously sobriety is an extreme thing. It's not for everyone. It's just because I had no off button. I think with Instagram, I've been sort of starting up and speaking to a lot more people in the sober community, as it were. And it's just, it's interesting. Like, people are similar, like they just have no off button. Now, if you're in that situation, then I think you know in yourself, because it happens a lot, that you potentially need to try and not drink as much or do drugs, because that is the potential for screwing up your life. Now, you have choices. Everyone has choices. If you're going to university, you're already lucky that you're in a position to go there. You can make the most of it without having to get blind drunk or do drugs, because that's where it all starts. And when you leave university, there's no school of how to adapt university life into life. You just have to get on with it and do it.
So right. Yeah, mate, you're right about that. And that's one big thing I suppose I'm not trying to push, but I'm aware of, that there is no education of how to deal with the real life. You know, like there's no education about finance. I know there is some stuff out there now which people are pushing, which I'm super grateful for. But, you know, coming out of college or university life, there's no more education unless you go out and seek it. So
that's where I think I fell short, and that is why I'm now setting up my business to cover those areas. To cover all the areas and experiences that I've gone through, to make sure that anyone who might be in that sort of, it's for anyone that generally wants to develop their own wellness, but for anyone particularly of the lad variety, where they might think, you know what, I can't actually talk to anyone, but there's now going to be potentially a resource through fitness, nutrition, and some form of mental health coaching for people to come and chat to us and just talk stuff through. Because at the end of the day, I was, one of the biggest things I found was going to group meetings. So I used to go to Cocaine Anonymous, and just talking to a random group of people as a bloke about how you feel is one of the most empowering things you can do, and it just gets that weight off your shoulders. I was always anti it. I just thought, what a bunch of people holding hands, singing a prayer at the end. It's not for me. But there was a lot that I got from those experiences. I don't go anymore, because I think you need to get a balance with recovery. You need to
100%.
Do your recovery and then get on with your life, but always be mindful of where you've been and try and help people that are going through similar processes. So Instagram for me has been quite good. Just trying to put my experiences out there a bit, but ultimately try and build my business for the future as well.
So, like, tell me, I mean, look, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to acknowledge you for sharing that. Because, you know, it's never an easy story to tell, like, especially when you go through all the hard stuff. But the fact you've been through it, you've gone to rehab, you've completely changed your life around, you've 180'd on your whole life. And so, like, now, what is the ethos of the business you're trying to create? Like, what are you trying to do and put out there?
So Fitology is the name of the business, and it's basically trying to go on 4 pillars. So
Yeah.
for me, the things that got me into a good routine and good habits was getting a personal trainer as soon as I left rehab. So I had a routine 3 times a week. I then worked on my self-development work. I've probably done over 1,500 hours in the last 2.5 years.
Nice.
And then the financial well-being, like you said, so I'm a qualified financial advisor by trade, but I was absolutely shit with money.
Yeah.
I mean, I was terrible.
Yeah.
And the thing is combining that and also the spiritual side. So when I say spiritual, it can sometimes scare people and they think, what, is he a hippie or something? No, it just means at the end of the day that you believe that the world will put in place what the world's going to put in place. You're a very, very tiny element of that. And no, it doesn't matter how big your ego is. You sometimes just have to let things go, not worry about them, and just hope that by putting in the good work and having a solid foundation and doing things right, that things will work out for you. And it's just the teachings around those things within a fitness and nutrition programming element. So I think modern day, you need to track mental health as much as you do fitness,
100%.
because it's not guaranteed. You could have the best looking body in the world, but you look at Love Island, like there's been a few people that have killed themselves who on the face of it look beautiful, but mentally no one's been checking in on them. No one's asked them, oh, how are you? And no one's trying to work stuff through with people. So it's trying to have a modern day business for me that can help people in that sort of ilk, where they don't, it's all anonymous. You just speak to someone that's been through similar experiences, because the business will expand into getting other people that have been through mental health issues. So whether that's an actual mental health worker where they can talk more in depth about stuff, because I think experience is key. You need to have experience with mental health problems to understand how you overcome them, and also how you don't always overcome them, but sometimes it's just a constant monitoring thing. It's like me and you doing that gratitude journal is just a small little piece of my day, but that just keeps me regular, and it just makes me check in on my own mental health. There's little things like that you can do, which will all accumulate under the business branding, just to make sure everyone's got a healthy body and mind.
Hey, it's exactly that. And I think I'll just going to use an analogy of Les Brown, who's a big motivational speaker. And he says, if you plant a seed and you don't water it, it's not going to grow. If you don't water it every day, it's not going to grow. If you water it every single day for 5 years, that will grow. And like, it's the same thing with your mental health. You've got to keep every day, just do that little thing that's going to make it grow that better. Like, just keep feeding it the good stuff, like the gratitude journal we do, like 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, just every day. It's going to build up to big things. And that's how you keep, for me anyway, that's how I'm keeping my mental health like in check and in place where I want it to be the most happiest. So yeah, man, I fully agree with that. I mean, like, what would you say your journey from your early 20s to like now, like, how would you summarize your whole journey?
Nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just my 20s was so chaotic. Like, I mean, really chaotic. And for some reason, I decided that I wanted to start my own business venture. Like, I come out of doing a 1.5 years of sobriety after going through all that chaos, and then decided I'd start doing my own golf travel agency to begin with, which didn't work out, but that's life. And then going through the stresses and strains of setting up a business. But now I really feel like I've got my sense of purpose. Another thing growing up is finding that sense of purpose, and now having a sense of purpose in utilizing my experiences and my strengths and my passion for fitness and nutrition. Like, that's another thing. Like, that is the single biggest thing that has helped me keep my mind in track, is by doing regular exercise. I know like you said, you have to do the regular mental health checkups as well. like exercise and mental health are so intrinsically linked.
Mad,
Like, who
yeah.
would have thought me and you would have started running?
I know, don't, mate, don't.
Mate.
Don't. It's a lot of fun though sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, move on from that. But
Yeah. So,
no,
but
right.
the good thing now is that because of the stuff that I've been through,
Mm-hmm.
I don't compare myself with anyone. If someone's doing well in life, I'm like, you know what, hats off. Like, let's see what are they doing well. Whereas before, I would have compared myself, and it would have been negative. I would have been like, oh, don't like them, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So now I've gone into this sort of entrepreneurial mindset where it's exciting because I've got thousands of percentage of passion for what I'm doing, and I'm learning. Like, it's a new industry. I don't know everything. I'm trying to learn as much as I can, finish off the qualification, and the business side of things I'm building as and when I go. But it's a learning process and one that I enjoy. So do my 5-year plan and properly plan it out this time. I think when I went into my last venture, I just sort of ran into it with a whole load of passion, but no real logic or business. You have to plan for these things. There's no getting away from it.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, look, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, what's the number one thing you would say to someone who, like, when you were at your point where you didn't want to speak to anyone, you couldn't speak to anyone, what would you say now to that person? Like, for someone else that might be listening to this and might be going through that just won't speak to anyone, and they're so bogged down with drug addiction, gambling addiction, drinking every night, or whatever it might be, like, what would you say to them?
Just need to reach out to people, like use Instagram. There's loads of drug, alcohol, recovery people out there. Reach out to me if you really need to. You can try and include my Instagram link on the podcast, and just go from there. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm not a savior. You will only save yourself when you want to save yourself. And the purpose of the business is trying to build up a brand that people can realize that they can check in with the brand. Because I think corporations are so bad at managing addiction within the workplace that it's too late, because there's no support up until the point the person needs to use rehab. By which point, if someone's going to rehab, they've lost everything. There's no two ways about it. There needs to be more check-ins within the corporate world and just life in general, so people know that there is a service to help them.
Yeah, man, I fully agree with that, and I think it's important that you mentioned that, to be fair, because it's these addictions, just from what I've seen, in my opinion, is that they are secrets to ourselves. Like, everyone has their own secrets, right? Everyone does things that other people will not know about, and they'll keep it to themselves. So if you are suffering from an addiction, whether that be drug, alcohol, gambling, or whatever type, even sex industry, like, I know that's one of the biggest addictions in the world at the moment. Like, there is help. There is someone you can talk to. And I've always said, like, if you're not comfortable speaking to someone, use social media via text. Because then you don't have to see their face, you don't have to speak to them, but yet you can still get your views across, and you can still engage and just start. This is the same thing when it comes to business. Like, my previous podcast, I'm saying, if you're worried about what to do or how to find your purpose or what business to do, just start engage with that process. If you start engaging with that process, go on.
And a good thing to note, actually, that you're saying about just text someone on Instagram, I've noticed that a lot of people set up a separate account to their normal person account as a sober this or a drug free that. They don't have to have any faces. They can just set it up as a one-page thing. You can be completely anonymous, and then you can search out the help you need by doing that.
Mate,
so
that's a great thing. Yeah,
people feel more comfortable doing it. And I think if that's highlighted, people don't have to then go through the stigma of, oh, he's potentially a drug addict, or
because this is the thing,
can get the help they need.
Yeah, because you start comparing yourself. If someone knows you on your profile and someone's following you, and you start reaching out for help, and it starts making it well clear who you are, that's where you're like, you don't want to reach out to anyone because you're scared of what other people are going to think and their opinions of you and what you've been through, and they're gonna cast judgment over you. But you're so right, and that's a great thing you've just said. Like, create a profile where no one knows you, it's completely anonymous, and then reach out for help. And then there's no judgment towards you because you're effectively a silent person, an anonymous person.
Yeah, and I think on a side note, if you reach out to the right people who've gone through similar experiences to me, then they should never be in a position to judge. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, look, speaking from the man himself. So, yeah, no, definitely, mate, definitely. Cool. All right, mate. Well, look, I think we're coming to the end of our time, but I appreciate you telling your story. I appreciate you giving us an insight into the process and the journey that you've been on, and also, like, mate, the last couple of years, like, we've obviously been in contact a bit more, and I can see what you're doing on your Instagram. I'll link all the things below. If you want to reach out to Sean, yeah, just pop him a message on Instagram. I know you're quite active on there, and you're doing a good thing. Like, it's obviously a shame it had to come that, but I say to everyone, do not live in regret. You live and learn, and everything happens for a reason.
100%.
So yeah, man. Any final words?
No, not really. Like it's just good. Like I think speaking about my experiences just helps me stay grounded, because
Yeah, man.
I've done a lot of work on my ego, read a lot of self-development books around ego, and it's just a happy place to be in. Like recovery is everything you make it, and sobriety, not having any hangovers, is amazing.
Yeah.
Like I am firing on full cylinders all day, every day at the
Mate,
moment.
nice.
So yeah, no, it's good.
How are you feeling like now? Like, obviously after all this, now you look back on this whole journey you've been on, like today, like what is going on for you today? Like, how are you feeling inside of yourself and what you're doing?
So for me to start talking about stuff and everything like this, it shows that I am now comfortable with who I am. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with my life. Things aren't perfect. Like I'm still at mum and dad's, etc. Consequences of my drug addiction, but I'm happy with all that. Like I've got such a great relationship with mum and dad now, who I'll say a special mention, because without them, I definitely wouldn't be here now. And yeah, it's just a really happy time in my life. Although I've got the ball ache, I'll probably start dating at some point soon. So
well, we'll deal with
that's
that when we come out of lockdown.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
No, nice, mate. Nice. Well, look, no, mate, I appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. And you know, if anyone's listened to this up until now, appreciate you listening up until now. And yeah, definitely reach out if you're struggling or if there's anything that's coming up. Also, just leave us a comment, leave us some feedback. It's always good to hear what your thoughts are. And I'm pretty sure if you have any questions for Sean, he'd be more than happy to answer. Likewise, myself. Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Well, look, thanks for that. Air fist pumps, best thing we can do. We can't shake hands. All right, man. Nice one. Appreciate it.
Take care. Cool. Take care.